We've all seen it on the evening news. A billionaire stands on a stage, smiling warmly as they hand over a giant novelty check for some staggering amount of money. The crowd cheers. Maybe that check is supposed to save a vital piece of the rainforest. But behind closed doors, that money hasn't actually moved an inch toward planting a single tree. When you or I donate to a local shelter, it's a permanent financial sacrifice. You take money out of your paycheck, you hand it over, and your bank account takes a very real hit. The ultra-rich don't operate that way. They don't just give their wealth away. Instead, they strategically shift it into highly protected financial vehicles that they control entirely. Elite philanthropy follows a different logic. It turns the act of giving into a sophisticated method of resource management, where wealth stays within private reach even after it's been officially donated. To understand why they do this, look at the massive liability that comes with extreme wealth. When someone accumulates billions of dollars in corporate stock, trying to cash that out creates a catastrophic tax problem. The moment they try to sell those shares to use the cash, the government steps in to take a massive percentage. To escape this threat, they use a specific legal loophole. They set up something called a donor-advised fund, or a private foundation. Think of it as a personal charity that they build from scratch. The billionaire transfers massive blocks of corporate stock out of their personal accounts and into this walled-off foundation. The exact second those assets cross the line, they get an immediate tax deduction. Their tax debt drops to zero instantly. By legally categorizing this massive wealth transfer as a charitable donation, they completely neutralize their tax crisis without actually losing their money. There is a massive catch to this system. The billionaire gets their tax break today, but the law does not require that money to go to an actual working charity tomorrow. The transferred wealth can simply sit indefinitely. There is no ticking clock forcing them to distribute the funds to the causes they promised to help. The billionaire hasn't truly parted with their fortune. They've simply moved it from their left pocket to their right pocket, wrapping it in a new legal package. Even though it's technically a charity's money now, the billionaire retains absolute authority over it. They decide if, when, and exactly where a single dollar ever gets spent. The core function of this playbook is to hoard wealth that has been subsidized by the public while keeping it under impenetrable private control. So, if this mountain of cash isn't actively curing diseases or feeding people, what exactly is it doing while it sits in the foundation? The law provides a very convenient loophole. It allows billionaires to hire themselves and their relatives to manage the charity. They can legally appoint their own children to the board of directors. Those kids can then be paid lucrative six-figure salaries, and that money comes directly out of those tax-free funds. These private foundations operate as highly effective vehicles for dynastic wealth preservation. The billionaire keeps the money inside their own bloodline, and the media still writes glowing articles calling them a savior. Eventually, decades later, they might actually decide to spend the money. But the motivation behind the distribution rarely resembles pure compassion. Instead, it looks exactly like a corporate strategy. Inside these boardrooms, human misery is evaluated using aggressive business metrics. They look at starvation and disease and ask for the return on investment, or calculate the exact impact per dollar. When they look at a global health crisis, they don't operate like a local clinic. They view a vaccine rollout as a business model that needs to be scaled efficiently. This creates a glaring contradiction. The exact same aggressive economic systems that allowed them to accumulate billions are the ones that caused many of these social crises in the first place. Now they are using that fortune to put a band-aid over the damage. Charity stops being an act of empathy. It becomes a sterile corporate buyout of human suffering, executed with their specific systems and carefully branded with their family name. There is a much darker consequence to this playbook. It completely bypasses democratic oversight. Normally, tax dollars are collected and allocated by elected officials who have to answer to the public. Foundation dollars, however, are dictated entirely by the whims of a single unelected family. If a billionaire decides they care about education, schools receive the funding they need to keep their doors open. But if that same billionaire doesn't care about clean water infrastructure, entire populations are left to go thirsty. By funneling what should have been public tax revenue into their own private foundations, They have purchased the ability to unilaterally dictate global priorities. By utilizing the tax code to gain this level of unilateral control, these individuals have essentially moved beyond simple wealth preservation. They have used our own legal systems to purchase the authority to shape the world's future according to their own personal vision.